this pavement princess of a truck driver who decided that he was just too good to wait in traffic, that he actually is causing because he is choosing to drive, actually made a pretty solid argument for wider bike lanes without even knowing it at the time.
This guy's going through a bike lane.
See, with the recent calls for bike lanes to be removed across the province of Ontario, Canada, because
taking away lanes of traffic on our most congested roads that are making it difficult for emergency vehicles to get through.
What politicians should actually be doing, if they actually cared about gridlock and emergency services and the response times, and not just getting re-elected by the suburbanite voters of Ontario, is Ontario should require super wide bike lanes on all arterial roads so that emergency vehicles are never truly stuck in traffic again, because people in bike lanes who are riding bicycles or e-bikes or electric scooters or mobility scooters or rollerblading or skateboarding, any of those micromobility devices can either easily move out of the way when it's safe to do so, to the side or step over. It's possible. Or simply continue riding at around 10 to 20 kilometers an hour, because that's still way, way faster, like 200% faster than standstill, gridlocked traffic. That's a pretty dang good idea, right? Then people who apparently hate having more effective, safe, affordable, and reliable transportation options, which inherently don't suffer gridlock at the same degree as vehicles, like personal motor vehicles, cars you might say, or trucks, wouldn't be able to just say, oh, cyclists are just so entitled, which already isn't the case anyway, but instead these lanes could just be used by emergency vehicles to save people's lives. So these lanes would actually save even more people's lives than they already do by protecting everyday people riding bicycles, doing everyday tasks like commuting and grocery getting and shopping or whatever else people want to do on a bike. At least when the actual bike lanes are protected from motor vehicle traffic. Debatably, in this footage right here, the truck is going over a protective barrier, so I guess bollards have to be added, because, we'll get into more protections in just a few moments, but these are a lot more protected than just paint on the road, so I'm gonna give the bike lane a pretty good pass there. But let's take a moment to break this wider bike lanes idea down a bit more, using this doofus's truck for reference, because he is responsible for making me think of this in the first place. Thanks, guy, but also don't do that again. Like, what are you doing? He's driving a massive, what is probably a 2024 GMC Sierra 2500 heavy-duty truck with a width of over 2 meters, or approximately 6.5 feet. That is freaking massive. You know what else is that big? Most emergency service vehicles, coming in at around 2.4 meters. Tuck in your mirrors a bit, and you're about the same width as that oversized truck. That means it's effectively a fact that we could easily improve emergency vehicle response times by allowing professional emergency vehicle drivers to drive carefully and legally in these bike lanes. And you can even set up automatic bollards that only go down for emergency or service vehicles. Or a much cheaper option, but a worse solution, police could actually do their jobs. And or cameras, or so many options. Actually, another option is more pedestrianized spaces. One time when my wife and I were in one of the touristy pedestrian zones in Athens, Greece, we heard sirens coming down our way. Obviously, I whipped out my phone immediately as we moved aside, because that was exactly what I had been thinking of for years, about how pedestrians and people on bicycles or scooters can just move out of the way. Cars can't sidestep like emergency vehicles. That's not how that works. Pedestrian traffic evaporation is a real thing that can happen in seconds. Back over on this side of the pond, though, to be honest, the majority of emergency vehicles in North America that respond to emergencies within cities are needlessly large. So we could do with some downsizing of them so that they could fit in, let's say a standardized multi-use dynamic bike and emergency vehicle lane. Like, gridded across the city. Especially seeing as initial response times are often more important than bringing the entire hospital's worth of equipment with you on a call. The majority of paramedic equipment already fits on a bicycle rack. Seriously. But emergency response times, think of it. Theoretical situations. Your mother gets a heart attack 5 seconds from now. You call 911. Do you want a massive ambulance and fire truck at your door in half an hour because they're stuck in gridlock traffic? Or would you prefer 1 to 2 paramedics there within minutes because they were able to navigate seamlessly with smaller vehicles to your door? Yeah, I'd take a few minutes too. Also, this doesn't mean that another larger vehicle can't come with more supplies later, but it does mean that paramedics and other medical staff and EMS workers can get to victims, patients, faster. Like, at least initially, and then a larger vehicle that was already going to be coming, that already exists, can make its way. But at least you have people there faster. That's what saves lives. So, anyways, really effective idea. I don't know. I have not fleshed out the details. I just saw this and made this video. So yeah, by the way, this is why it's becoming so much more common to find paramedics riding bicycles in places with high traffic, or a lot of people, like at concerts and parades and races and other densely packed places, because bicycles are just literally so much more nimble, efficient, faster, and safer for everyone in those situations. And a lot of situations, to be honest. Back to car-centric design for just a moment. How can you, as a human being, look at this scene right here with your human eyeballs and say, you know what, we need just one more lane. This isn't enough. We need more. That will solve it. That will solve congestion. No, this is not the case. Induced demand is a thing. We know this, so it's been discussed bajillions of times, but it's simple, really. But for those of you who may not yet understand, let me explain it further. Cars are the problem. More options for transporting human beings routinely from various points within cities to other various points within cities are required as populations grow within cities. Are you still with me? Hold on. It doesn't matter if you want to drive. I'm not saying you can't either, but if everyone decides that they want to drive, that just means that everyone who needs to drive is 100% going to get stuck in traffic because they're also part of traffic. And those who want to drive are also now part of traffic, and now you have a big conflict. So the idea is to do this. Get as many people who can or want to transport themselves using other options aside from their own motor vehicle to do so. Because personal motor vehicles, let's call them cars for brevity right now, are the least space-efficient mode of transportation on the planet, which is why cars are the problem. And the only way to get normal people out of their vehicles, other than the stereotypical recreational, risk-tolerant, middle-aged man in lycra or a mammal, is to make getting around outside of a metal and plastic death cage safe and efficient enough for those regular folk to make the leap. It doesn't even need to be all the time, and for every single trip. You can still own a vehicle, but think of how much less traffic there would be if people cut down their vehicle use by half? Oh my god. Instant traffic evaporation, which is actually a term, by the way. Or we can just use rapid transit bus-only lanes as emergency lanes instead of doing anything to the bike lanes that currently exist. That would also alleviate traffic, but speedy transit is awesome. Anyways, that's a whole other topic. So basically, at this point, I think we need to rebrand bike lanes. This is just a personal thought here. So I know I got into a bit of a side tangent, but back to how we need wider bike lanes, but also how we might want to market them differently. I feel that both sides, whether pro-bike lane or anti-bike lane, tend to market bike lanes with the idea that only cyclists can benefit from them. People still don't fully understand or think of utility cycling as something that normal people do. Only recreational, mammal, spandex-clad cyclists. But that couldn't be further from the truth. On the anti-bike lane side, you have people claiming that it worsens their driving experience. It doesn't, but on the pro-bike lane side of things, you have comments like, finally, I can get a better bike route because drivers have a full connected network and why can't other modes of transportation? Right? Yeah. We're all on about bike lanes, but why can't we get a connected network? That's all we want. We barely have any bike lanes, actually. It's mostly just roadway. There's just too much of this us versus them mentality. there are bits of truth and some fallacies in many of these arguments, and many more. What really needs to be changed, though, is how we market bike lanes. What if they became flex use or dynamic lanes? What if these bike lanes were actually wide enough to allow for emergency vehicles to drive past gridlocked traffic effortlessly and save millions of lives over the years? We need to market these bike lanes, dynamic lanes, dyno lanes for short, whatever, as a legitimate solution to safer roads for everyone, for many different reasons, actually, along with traffic calming and all of a slew of other reasons. But these lanes are a solution to traffic congestion, and as much as removing a car lane can feel oppressive to drivers, we know that drivers think that that amount of space taken away is very closely correlated to their ability to drive. It is not actually linked, but that's what they think. And we can recognize that. But the space is not being taken away. It's providing safe routes for those who might otherwise have been in cars in front, behind, to your left, to your right, and all around you, adding to the congestion that you so despise. Just because there wasn't a safe, efficient option other than to drive before that bike lane existed in the first place, and now traffic evaporated. Take that bike lane away and you've just added a bunch more congestion to your commute. Why would you want that? Not everyone needs to bike all the time. Again, not saying that. We all need to recognize that not everyone can bike, and that's fine. Not everyone can drive either. There's a diverse amount of people in the world, didn't you know? And I don't think anyone expects everyone to bike all the time. There's no place on the planet where that happens. Not everyone can take transit, and that's fine too. Not everyone can drive. That's okay too. Not everyone can get on an electric scooter. That's okay too. Not everyone can walk. That's okay too. But our society, as of right now, in North America, has been built for cars. So everyone is forced to drive, no matter the distance, task, weather, or anything else. And that is what we'll just call absolute stupidity. By building bike lanes and efficient transit that doesn't get stuck in car traffic, you are giving people the option so that they are not forced to share the same road as you. So back to the wider bike lanes real quick. They would help everyone. It's ridiculous that there is so much culture war surrounding bikes versus cars. Getting rid of these bike lanes, or flex use lanes, or non-car dynamic lanes, whatever we want to call them in the end, getting rid of them within cities is absolutely ridiculous. It's just a political stunt to cater to the suburban voters who spend so much of their limited lifespan sitting in traffic that they don't have time to research how adding more lanes would just not fix the problem of them sitting in traffic right now. This has no end. And the only way is actually if we realize that an overdependence on personal motor vehicles is the root cause of all of this. All of us need better options, even if you need to drive a vehicle, whether for work, disabilities, cargo, or distance, although a lot of those problems would go away with proper transit and high-speed rail. Widening bike lanes is a totally different take on things, and we should consider them. Yeah, that's kind of my take here. Okay, so that's all I got. I just needed to let my thoughts out, and I just started babbling, and this is what happened. This video. That's you got this far? Obviously, like and subscribe for more. Check out these videos over here, and let me know what you think about widening bike lanes and rebranding them. Have a good one.